I wrote this before Yashahime. Analysis on Sesshoumaru and Rin's relationship. Western culture versus Eastern culture. Sesshoumaru and Rin's relationship to a majority of the Eastern fandom is seen as romantic when Rin comes of age, especially for that time period that the series is based on. Not only do those fans see them as what Americans call it, a canon couple, but they are well aware of polyamorous relationships widely accepted back in that time period and era, like how the Inu no Teisho had 2 wives, where Sesshomaru's mother was well aware of the human wife and was unfazed nor appeared to be jealous, hinting Sesshomaru's taste in humans about Rin like his father was with Izayoi. At least 20% of the fandom in my group, while it was closed, that means memories only, voted Sesshoumaru when I ran the poll in 2019. It was 64 votes and Sesshomaru romantic, with adult Rin had 126 votes. In a fan pop poll, Rin had 61% and Sesshoumaru had 39%. While I ran the poll again in 2020 as public where even non-members were able to vote, I shared it across multiple groups. This time I specifically labeled it as romantic or parental between Sesshomaru and Rin. The romantic part for her when she's an adult. The results within just a few hours were what I expected. The romantic portion still surpasses the parental choice. It became clear that 30% of the Western fandom saw Sesshomaru and Rin as parental, and while 70% of the fandom saw adult Rin with Sesshomaru as romantic. The Western fandom majority is mostly accepting of Rin being with Sesshomaru when she's of age. However, the fraction that is more towards him being parental is far more than what the Eastern fandom thinks. 2 administrators of a group that has over 21,000 members called Sinosphere, Eastern Culture, have both spoken to me about the differences in views. One stated, by Esther Zhao, "I have never heard of this as an issue ever until I joined the American fandom. I've known about the gift that Rin receives at the end of the series as an act of courting." The second admin, Hiroyuki, said the Japanese viewed Sesshomaru and Rin easily as a couple when she's of age, courting being much differently than Western and the fact of its time period that the fiction is based off of. Courtship in Japan.
Contemporary courtship in Japan is more subtle than dating in the United States. The blossoming of a relationship from friendship to marriage can take years. The relationship begins as friendship, with dates taking place only in public places, typically with groups of friends present. Public displays of affection are frowned upon. The next stage is dating only as a couple, which is done discreetly. Women typically withhold displays of extreme affection and proclamations of love until she deems her suitor is sincere.
When the relationship enters the stage of lovers, which means the status of boyfriend and girlfriend, the couple typically make an announcement to friends and family members, with the suitor asking for parental permission to pursue the relationship. The man typically brings gifts when visiting the family. Sesshomaru stops by to visit Rin and Kaede, often giving gifts. The kimonos are gifts representing courtship. Kaede is Rin's family. A drama CD was released only in Japan when you pre-ordered the final act. Where Sesshomaru proposes to Rin, it takes place right after the final act's last episode and is called The Day After Tomorrow. During the proposal, Sesshomaru says, "Rin, have you grown accustomed to life in the village? No one is bullying you or anything? Did you make a kimono out of the cloth I gave you the other day? When you are troubled or anxious or sad, or any other time, feel free to call on me. I will come to you immediately. Even if we are far apart, if you call my name, I will absolutely come flying to you. If you cannot speak, you can whistle. Whistle through your fingers if you like. Distance is no object. Our hearts are tied together. With the power of trust, there is nothing to fear. Simply having that feeling should be enough to fill your heart. That is why it is fine for things to remain as they are for now. We have plenty of time. You can examine your heart at your own pace. Until then, take care of yourself." About the CD, no, it does not have a satire label on it from when we looked at it. It just says Asade, which means day after tomorrow. If you want to consider it as a parody, that's up to you. But yes, the producers and animators ship them. It is an officially licensed disc. Let's be real here. If something is officially licensed and approved, it is still a part of the continuity in one way or another, no matter how you slice it. It is also something that the creators know about. Westerners and Easterners see the world differently. Thanks Mod Esther for supplying this. It says on newscientist.com, "There is plenty of anecdotal evidence suggesting that Western and East Asian people have contrasting worldviews," explains Richard Nisbet, who carried out the study. "Americans break things down analytically, focusing on putting objects into categories and working out what rules they should obey," he says. By contrast, East Asians have a more holistic philosophy. Looking at objects in relation to the whole, figuratively, Americans see things in black and white, while East Asians see more shades of gray, says Nisbet. We wanted to devise an experiment to see if that translated to a literal difference in what they actually see. The researchers tracked the eye movements of two groups of students while they looked at photographs. One group contained American-born graduates of European descent, and the other was comprised of Chinese-born graduate students who came to the US after their undergraduate degrees. Each picture showed a striking central image placed in a realistic background, such as a tiger in a jungle. They found that the American students spent longer looking at the central object, while the Chinese students' eyes tended to dart around, taking in the context. By rules that some Westerners are raised to follow when it comes to Sesshoumaru and Rin, if you save someone at a young age, they are automatically considered your child regardless by blood. Rin was only with Sesshoumaru for less than a year, and with Kaede for 3 years. They are also not thinking of the Japanese culture or time period. Nisbet hopes that his work will change the way cultures view each other. Understanding that there is a real difference in the way people think should form the basis of respect. Respecting the time period in Japan's culture. Kagome teaches us that in the series. In the series, Moroku proposes to many girls because of his wind tunnel, not ever knowing if he will live or die. Even Koharu when she was age 11 in chapter 147 in episode 41. When Moroku met Koharu, she was 11 and Moroku was 15. She is now seen at the age of 14 and Moroku is 18. Kagome even thinks Koharu is closer than just a friend. At first, Sango and Kagome were mad, thinking Moroku was perverted with her when she was 11, but he tells them that nothing happened between them, as he said she was still a child and didn't lay a hand on her. It was explained he even left right after first meeting Koharu, and they believed him. Koharu even said, "I believed he would come back for me." The young lord of the oil keep was the real sexual pervert and not Moroku. He even tried to force himself on Koharu, while Moroku did not. Koharu said she was an adult now and that she could bear Moroku's child, because 14 was more of the adult age back then than it is now. Kagome also thought she was awesome. She says, "She's younger than I am. Girls of the feudal era are amazing." Kagome even has a talk with Koharu. Koharu explains how she feels about Moroku, and Kagome looks like she's in amazement. Sango was also furiously jealous of Koharu. Ayame was around the same age as Rin when Koga proposed to her. She grew up and they got married. Inuyasha is 200 and Kagome was 15. She became 18, then they married. Rumiko Takahashi's fire tripper. There's time traveling back and forth from feudal Japan to the modern era. Shu and Suzu meet each other both at different ages, even thinking that they are each other's sibling at one point. But they aren't because they're not related by blood, so they get married. Pretty much the same type of pairing, with the different eras. All the characters seen here are all the same people. The little boy in the red shirt becomes the warrior. The little girl in the pink robe becomes the modern schoolgirl. Suzu was adopted into Shu's family and took care of him as her little brother. And Shu adopted Suzu as his little sister. They fall in love when they meet each other as adults and realize it's okay for them to get married because they aren't blood related. They both live in the feudal era together. It is very similar to her later work, Inuyasha. Talk about a confusing time paradox. I still love this one anyway. The applecidist part is funny. As you know, Rin is around 8 years old when she is first introduced into the series. She was with Sesshoumaru for less than a year, 3 years and several months go by, to chapter 559. She is around 11 to 13 years old. Rin had been living with Kaede for 3 years since Naraku had been defeated. Inuyasha states that it's up to her to decide on what she wants in the final chapter. In the proposal, Sesshoumaru states that there is enough time for her to decide, while Koga even proposed to Ayame when she was physically Rin's age. Ayame grew up and they got married. Age of consent in Japan varies from province, the lowest being 13. Back in feudal Japan, once you hit puberty, that was your adulthood. The world was a much more dangerous place and you had to mature fast. People didn't live as long back then as they do now. The drama CD is officially licensed and produced by the same staff that made the anime, but that isn't the only supporting evidence we have that it's accepted by not only the creator and producers. We actually have an adult Rin design. The character designer and animator for the Inuyasha series posted these artworks of adult Rin and Sesshoumaru. Actually bought the calendar, so this shows that the animator even ships them. Consider these as possible designs that may be used for the future. Rumiko Takahashi wrote strict rules to the animators to follow for each character on what you can and cannot do with them. One of them being Kagome's skirt must always be covering her underwear. When you work for a company and produce things, you must represent the characters properly. If you do something that the creator doesn't like, you could get fired or even sued. There are rules Rumiko Takahashi gave the animators to properly represent her characters, so it's clear that Rumiko Takahashi knows that the staff ship Sesshoumaru and Rin, even allowing them to create the drama CD that includes Sesshoumaru proposing to Rin for when she becomes an adult. To many fans, Sesshoumaru and Rin, Inuyasha and Kagome, Koga and Ayame maturing and falling in love with each other is not an issue. To a fraction of the fandom, it's led to hate and disrespect towards other fans, even to Japanese culture and the time period it's based on. However, even if you don't like it, shouldn't mean you should disrespect one another over it. We can always agree to disagree and move on. It is based on reality, but written in fiction. Demons that can age hundreds of years old. Anything can happen.